Imagine enduring a torture for speaking out. Mazen Al-Hamada did, and he never stopped fighting for justice. To honor Mazen Al-Hamada's courage, I built a website dedicated to his legacy. It's not just a project, it's a digital tribute. Mazen Al-Hamada was a Syrian activist who bravely stood against the Assad regime. After years of imprisonment and torture, he mysteriously disappeared in 2020, and his body was found December 2024. His story deserves to be remembered by the world. By the end of this video, you're going to have 4 different sections on this website. There is the navbar section. Second, we have the dynamic floating image effect of Mazen Al-Hamada. Beside it, we have the content section, which contains few information about Mazen Al-Hamada. Below it, we have an interactive image slider with hover effects. By the end of this video, you're going to have a sleek modern design with meaningful visuals. Let's get started.
So first, here we have the basic HTML files here. We have linked the HTML file, so we're done with that, and we have a title called A Hero to Syria. Apart from that, here we have a folder called Images, which contains our list of images, which we're going to use each and every one of these images later on in the video. So back here, so first, this is actually what we're going to create. We have 4 sections in this page. We have the navbar section, we have the content section, the image section, and we have the gallery section. Therefore, now we're going to focus on the navbar section. Now to create this navbar, first we need a header. Within this header, we're going to insert a nav, which is going to be our navbar. First thing we need in our navbar is a logo, just like what we're having in the screen. So we're going to create a div and insert a text inside of Code Dev Academy. For the Academy, because we want it to be in a red color, we're going to highlight it in a span. So now below this header, now we need on other list items. So we're going to create an on other list items. First, we need to give it a class name. So we're going to give it a class name to be list items. So the first list item here, we're linking it to nothing, and we're going to give it a text of home. We need 4 list items, so we're going to paste it 4 times. The second list items, we're going to change the name to service. The third list items, we're going to change it now to contact. And the fourth list items, we're going to change it to help. Now below these list items, we need a button. So first for the button, we're going to use link for that. So we're going to create a link. We're going to link it to nothing, and we're going to give it a text of explore. Now we need to give the button a class name. The class name, we're giving it to be btn. So this is actually all the things we need for our navbar. From the browser, this is actually what we're having. We have a logo, list items, and a button. So now we need to add flesh to it in CSS. As you can see here, we have inserted our font from Google Font. We have a universal styling of margin and padding to be 0. Box sizing is border box, and we have a font family of Poppins, and the second option is Robo 2. The overall font size of this project is going to be 62.5%. If you have already been following our videos, you're already familiar with this. But if this is the first time you're coming across our video, for every project, we make our font size to be 62.5%. The reason is because we use rems for our font size. And 1 rem is equals to 16 pixels. 2 rems is equals to 32 pixels. 3 rems is equals to 48 pixels. So the more you go higher, the more confusing it gets. But with this, that we made our font size to be 62.5%, it changed the font size to be 1 rem to be 10 pixels, 2 rem to be 20 pixels, 3 to be 40 pixels, 4 to be 40 pixels. So when we do that now, it makes the calculation much more easier to understand, which also helps when it comes to responsive design. Next thing is we need the whole body of the page to have a background color, which black will do that for us. So now what we do now, we're going to target the header, and we're going to give it a position of fixed. We want it to be fixed in the top, so we're going to give it a top to be 0 and the left to be 0. We're going to give it a weight to consume full weight of the body, which is going to be 100%. We want it to be above everything, so we give it a z-index of 99. Now, we're going to target the nav, which is the navbar. The first thing we do for the navbar, we're going to give it a breathing space, which the perfect property for that is padding. We give it a padding of 10 pixels space from the top and bottom and 25 from the left and right. Now, the navbar needs to have a background color, which we're actually going to just give it a transparent. In our navbar, we have logo, list items, and buttons. So we're going to make all of them to be flexed with display flex. We align them in the center and give them a justify content to be spaced between. So now when we do that, this is actually what we're having, and this is what we need to create. We're going to start by styling the logo, which is Code Dev Academy text. And the first thing we do for the logo, we're going to adjust the font size to be 1.6 rem. We make the font to be bold and give the logo to have a text color of white. We highlighted the Academy in a span, so we're going to use CSS nesting to just come below it and target the span. It's just to change the color to red. So this is actually what we're having. Now we're going to target the list items. So here we're just going to target the other list items, which we give it a class name of list items. They are stacking on each other, so to make them free, we use display of flex. We give a space between them with a gap of 1.6 rem. Now with CSS nesting, we just come below it and target the li and make them to have a list style of none. Now the list items are links, so we target the A. The first thing we do now, we take out the underlines because they have underlines by default with a text decoration of none. We adjust the font size to be 1.4 rem and give it a font width to be bold. We change the color of the text to have a lighter color and we give it a cursor of pointer so that when you take over, the cursor to appear. Now this is actually what we're having. Back here in the HTML, for the first list item, we give it a class name of active. So we head back to CSS, we add a hover effect on the list items to change a color of red. Just after the hover, we're going to insert a comma, target the list items, and insert .active, which is the first list item. So when we do that now, the first list item is going to be red, and the rest is when you hover, is going to have the red color. Now we're going to target the button. So back here in the CSS, I've already targeted the button. So the first thing I do, I make them to be display of inline block because they are links. We give it a font size of 1.6 rem and we increase the font width to be bold. We change the color of the text to have a lighter color. We take out the underlines using text decoration of none. We give it a weight to fit content and the padding 10 pixels from the top and bottom and 25 from the left and right. We give it a box shadow to be 00 with a 5 pixel blur with a light color. We curved the edges of the button using border radius to be 5 pixels. We add hover effect on the button, which is going to be a box shadow. We give it a 00 with a 10 pixel blur and a gray color. Now when you do that, this is actually what we're having when you hover on the button. Now we're done with the navbar. We need to focus on the body of the page now. The first thing we do, below the header, we're going to create a main with a class name of main page. So first here, we're going to insert a H1 and we're going to have a text of Mazen Al-Hamada, which is the main figure of this our design. Below it is a paragraph that has a text of eyes can never lie. Then we're going to insert emoji. Below it, we're going to create a H3 with a text of he was one day away from his biggest dream. Below it, we're going to have two buttons, which we are going to use link for that. We're going to give this button to have the same class name as the button we use for the navbar so that it can have the same styling. The first button is going to have a text of explore and the second button is going to have a text of discover. We're going to head to the CSS and add some styling to it. So we're going to target the main page, which we just inserted right now. We're going to give it a maximum width we want it to consume, which is 1200 pixels. We give it a width of 100% of the body and a height of 80 VH. So this is actually what we're going to do. We're going to have a content and a gallery. Because of that, we're going to make them to be flexed. We align them in the center using text align of center, and we give it a justify content to be spaced between. Another thing we need is a padding. From the top and bottom, we make them to be 0, and from the left and right, we give it a space of 1 m. So the whole of this thing we just inserted, we're going to put it within a single div. So we're going to create a div with a class name of content. We're going to put everything inside. So here we're going to target the main page and we're going to target this content we just created right now. We give it a weight to be 50% of the page. We give it a height to be auto, so it's going to adjust itself based on the content. We give it a margin from the left to be 4M. So now what we do now, we're going to target the H1. So the first thing we do for the H1, we're going to give it to have its own color. Then we give it a font size. The font size, we make it to be 4.5 rem, and we give it a font width, which is going to be bold. We give it a width to be fit content. And the font family for this H1 is going to be Play Fair Display. We change it to uppercase using a property text transform, uppercase. Now, this is the H1 we just styled. And the reason these two buttons are having the same styling with this one is because it's having the same class name. So what we're going to do now, we're going to target now the next paragraph. So first we start by giving it a color, which is red. We give it a font size to be 3.5 rem. We give it a font weight to be bold. Now what we're going to do now, we're going to target the H3. So the first thing we do for the H3, we're going to give a margin from the top, which is going to be 8 pixels. We move on to give the text a size to be 1.5 rem and the font weight to be bold. We give it a color to be white. We make it to have a font family of Play Fair Display. Now this is actually what we're having here. So we need to add spacing within and above these two buttons. So what we do now, we're going to target the two buttons, which we give it a class name of .ptn. To give this spacing, we're going to use margin for that. A 20 pixel from the top, 20 pixel from the right, a 0 pixel from the bottom, and 0 from the left. This is the result we're having. So now we're going to add the image by the other side of the screen. So here in the HTML here, below it here, we're going to create a div with a class name of hero. And this hero section is going to be the image of Mazen Al-Hamada. So we head to the CSS and target the hero. The first thing we do for the hero, we're going to give it a width to be 400 pixels, and the height is going to be also 250 pixels. Now we're going to insert the image. We give it a background, URL, and select the image. Just after it, we give it a no repeat, which is going to help the image not to repeat multiple times. Then we insert a center, which is going to focus on the center of the image. Now below it, now we give it a background size, which is going to be cover. So this is actually what we're having here. So let's add more styling on this image. So what we do now, we're going to give it a margin. So first we give it a margin space, which is 2M from the top, 5M from the right, and 0 from the bottom and left. Now we need the edges to be curved, and this is actually how we want the image to be. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add some values to it. For a 40 pixels to be the first value, 60%, 65%, and a 35%. We insert a backslash and add more values to be 40%, 35%, 65%, and a 60%. So when we do that, this is actually what we're having here. So now let's add a box shadow on the image. So we come below it and give it a box shadow, which the first values we give it to be 0, 0, with a 40 pixel blood and a red color. So with that, this is actually what we're having. So now let's make the image to be floating. So we're going to add an animation to it. I named the animation to be flow. We make it to last for 10 seconds and infinite. So what we're going to do, we're going to say add keyframes, and we're going to select the animation name, which is flow. We're going to say at 0 and 100%, we want the border radius to be in a specific size. Target it and give it a border radius, which we're going to say a 45%, a 65%, 75%, and we're going to give it a backslash. Then we give it a 22% and a 42% and a 55% and a 45%. So now we're going to add more values on it. So we're going to say at 33%, we want this box shadow to be in this size. And apart from that, we're also going to give it at 66%. This is actually how we want the box shadow to be. So when we do that now and run the code, this is actually what we're having. We're going to add more motion on it later on. So now we're going to create our gallery animation that is running below our page. So the first thing we're going to do, below this main, we're going to create a footer. So within this footer, we're going to create an items, and we need 9 different items, and each item is going to be an image. So now in the CSS here, we're going to target the footer and add some styling to it. The first thing we do is to give it a weight of 95% of the body. Then we move on to give it a height, which is going to be 85 pixels. We're going to give it a position of relative, so because we're going to adjust its child element based on position of absolute, so then we give it a margin for a 0 from the top and from the left and right to be auto, so it's going to adjust itself in the center. We give the border to be 2 pixels solid white. So this is actually the footer width that we just tell here. So now we're going to target the items in the footer. What we're going to do, first we're going to give them a position of absolute. We give the left to be 100%, so it's going to move to the end of the footer. We then give it weight to 110 pixels and a height to be 100% of the body, which is the footer. We give the item to have a background color of red. So this is actually what we have. As you can see, the reason the item is there is because it's having a left of 100%. So now we need to make it now to be moving from left to right. So we're going to give it an animation. We give the animation name to be slider with a 10-second linear infinite. We're going to say at keyframes and now target the slider, which is the animation. We're going to say it's starting from left of 100% and it's going to end to the left, which is going to be minus 110 pixels. So when we do that now, this is actually what we're having. It's moving from left to right, from left to right. I know you can see it hooking. The problem is not from the source code. I'm having issues with my system lagging. So that's actually the problem, but it's actually moving smoothly. We're going to give it an overflow of hidden. So anything that overflows outside the footer is going to be hidden. So now in the HTML, we're going to give a variable position to each of the items. So for the first item, we're going to give it a variable position of 1. The second item, we're going to give it a variable position. The third one also, the fourth to the last item. So each item has a position of number 1. The second item has a position of number 2 to the last item. So now we have done with that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to make sure that all the items to move separately. So we're going to use a formula. As you can see here, animation time is 10 seconds and we have a total number of 9 divs. When you note that, what we're going to do now, we're going to make some animation delay so that each item can move in a separate time. So we're going to say animation delay. So we're going to say calculation. So 10 seconds divided by 9, which is the total number of divs, times the position of the item. So we're just going to give a variable position, just like this. And we're going to say -1. So when we do that now, this should solve our problem. So this is actually what we're having here. Everything now is moving smoothly here. We're going to head to the HTML and we're going to add images to the divs. To the second image, to the fourth image, till the last image, we're going to add images to it. Now we're going to target the images. We're going to give it a weight of 100% and a height of 100%. Now, when we do that now, this is our images here. So now, what we're going to do now, when the image is animating, we want when you hover on the image, we want it to stop. So we're going to target the footer and target now when you hover on the items, we're going to give it an animation play state, which is going to be pause.